Hello, I'm Reverend Michael Mugford, and I'm part of the ministry team at Cole Harbour Woodside United Church, along with the Reverend Krista Elizabeth Wynn, and I'm pleased to offer this spiritual reflection today. Recently, I was thinking about how things are changing yet again. We're watching restrictions being lifted and mandates being changed, and we're moving from a time where we have been living under COVID to living with COVID in our midst. But the ups and the downs and the openings and the closings, they've taken their toll on us and on so many people. And I think we're beginning to realize just how truly important it is for us to be able to connect with one another, with people in the same place. I've had coffee with a couple of people in public, at coffee shops on a couple of occasions, and reconnecting with those people felt as warm as the cup of coffee and as refreshing as the time of being out and about. And this reminded me of a moment during one of the times that we had a brief opening in our COVID restrictions. I had the privilege of leading worship at Parkland at the Lakes on Baker Drive. The United Churches in Dartmouth take turns and go there to lead church for the residents. Something that Cole Harbour Woodside has been doing for many, many years. And it's a small commitment, but it's a large return. With COVID, this was suspended for months at a time, and then altered, and then suspended again, and then altered again. In pre-COVID times, we would go with members of the choir, a musician, and members of the pastoral care team. They would bring goodies with them to share with the residents following for social time. It was delightful. It was very often the highlight of my week that day. And with COVID, we adapted to the changes, and for a time, I was the only person permitted to be at those services. It meant that I was the worship leader, the reader, the preacher, and the choir all wrapped into one. After one of those services, I had the opportunity to stay behind and talk with a couple of the residents, socially distanced, of course. And we discovered we had some amazing connections. Through a variety of people and places we've been in our lives, we had ministers and acquaintances in common. We had attended church functions and even schools years and years apart. It was a delightful conversation that would have never happened had I not opened myself to just a few minutes of chatting casually that day. This was a connection that was pure happenstance. And I can't help but think that conversation would not have happened if we had not been able to risk for a few moments of socially distanced connection. And that was all only possible because we all opened ourselves up to the possibilities that were in that time. And taking risks isn't easy, and I know it, believe me, but it is also rewarding at the same time. It gave me a boost for the rest of that day. I'm hoping that in the time to come, we will be brave enough to take those moments when we're offered them, to make those connections again when we feel comfortable and safe to do so. As we learn to live in this new reality, it's important for us as individuals and a society to reestablish those lost connections that were damaged or lost during COVID. Encourage us to reach out to someone, anyone, someone in your building, someone in the line at a grocery store, someone waiting for a bus. Make a connection. Get together at a coffee shop, at church, at a restaurant, on a bench in a park. However you feel able and feel comfortable. And see if that person and yourself are not lifted and lightened just a little bit because of that encounter. It won't be long now until we get used to our new normal. But for now it's hard, and that's okay. It needs to be okay. But I want to offer us a word of hope from our scriptures today. Hebrews chapter 10, the author writes, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope that we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up on meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." Just some thoughts for today. Peace.